question.
Oh my goodness, and we're live, and we've just got a sassy question to the face. Welcome, Lloyd.
Hello.
How are you? Let us force this conversation like
I
we haven't
think
just had.
the best thing about Dietcast is this first 3 minutes are like, hello, Rob.
How are you? Default response. Question is, do we save the sassy? I've not seen the sassy question. Do we save the sassy question for questions? Should we make them wait?
Yeah, it's in the list, so we'll get there.
My goodness me. We've it's been bloody summer and it's not summer anymore. It's the light is fading, the dusk is growing longer. But Lloyd, you had one last triumphant sort of summer activity holiday. Just tell us about your holiday. I don't know why I'm just drawing this out. Just say, just talk.
I went to the baking hellscape of Spain for a week.
It is really hot over there.
So
So
hot,
hot.
just comedy hot, like so ridiculous. Like it was so hot that we couldn't even sit by the pool. It was like so hot. We just like pissed around, ate lots of nice food. Then we went to Germany, which is great. We went to Bernkastel Kuss, which is like a medieval town, and all the shops are ancient. There was a toy shop there from like 1530 something. Um,
It looked really cool. There was a bit that you posted, and for those of you that didn't see, Lloyd did it's almost like a little bit of a travel journal slash
yeah,
ideas for your game thing on AbTab, and it was absolutely wonderful. One of the things that really caught my imagination was the one that you posted, and I believe it used to be. I'm gonna get this wrong now. Was it like an outer wall of a city or a part
it
of
was
a
a
wall or
gate.
something that? Yeah, a gate. That was it.
Yeah,
Tell us about the gate, man.
so it's called Porta Negra, and it was the north gate of Trier, uh, and it would have been like the main way in, and all the other gates were like broken or destroyed over whatever many years. But it like that one stuck around, and then in the Middle Ages, like some hermit went and lived there, and then died in it. And then they said he was a saint, and then they made the gate a church. And because like a saint had died there, they built a monastery next to it. It was like a holy place for a while, and then it wasn't. And then Napoleon was going to like tear the thing down, but they convinced him that it was like, oh, this is like old Gauls, like this, you shouldn't destroy it because he destroyed the monastery.
Yeah.
And then he like left it standing there, just like had all these purposes over whatever amount of thousands of years, 2000 years. It's just,
I think it's incredible. And that story that you just said, that could easily have just been a story in the or a backstory of some fantasy novel or something like that's like an origin of a faith or a saint. I
yeah,
think.
100%. There's tons of that. And like, that's the thing that I found so interesting about it was like that it's just like a building, but it's like been around for so long that like people use it for different stuff. And like the other thing in Trier is that like in the Middle Ages, they would just like take stones from Roman things to build their own things, which I think is like so shitty. But like they didn't know, they just needed stones. Um, so like all these like amazing Roman ruins that they were like, how'd they build this? I don't know, but I need some rocks to build my house. So they would just like
Yeah.
take them from the amazing Roman architecture and just like take them and build their shitty little churches or whatever. Um,
People be like, think of the heritage, and they're like,
yeah,
I need to build something. I'm
yeah,
cold.
it's
They don't
raining.
give- Yeah, it's raining. Shut up. Oh my goodness. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. How do we do the show again, Lloyd?
So we look at the questions that we've been posed on Facebook, and then we say it depends.
That is true. It does.
Most of the
It
process.
really does. It really does depend. Do we know? I thought we talk games and just shit that we want to talk about, then we do questions. Is that right?
Oh yeah, we can do that.
So let's talk about stuff that you want to talk about first, or at least one
Yeah.
of the things. Go.
Yeah. So I also went to the Karl Marx Museum, which is Trier is where he was born, and it's the house that he like grew up in. It's like an amazing museum. You got me thinking about ideas in your role playing games because socialism or communism is like one of those ideas that like didn't exist and then did exist and like massively changed the world. just in eternity and always will like have a major effect. Um, and then it got me thinking about like what if something like that happened in Iskloft? Like Iskloft's a monoculture where there's only one, really only one culture. And like
Mm.
what if somebody came from a foreign shore, or like some idea was developed by somebody that was like maybe it's not okay to kill people, or like
Yeah,
something like that, where it's like maybe like the like it's not okay to murder animals and sacrifice them to gods. Maybe we should like not do that, or maybe we should stop taking thralls. Like that's everyone should have a right to freedom. An idea like that, if it like spread and got like some support and stuff, could like make a huge change to your setting. And like
genuinely.
Advent is one of those things, in
Yeah, I
the Nine
guess it is
Kingdoms,
actually. Yeah, I hadn't thought
or
of
they phrase it that way anyway. Like
that. They actually do.
you
Yeah,
know,
I should probably pay attention to what I actually say in my games.
but like the agents of Advent always like tout it as being this like new thing,
Yeah,
this new
like
idea
a
that's
new
going to change the world.
yeah, absolutely. No, I'm with you. Yeah, I get it. All right. Well, that's actually really interested me, man. Thinking about Iskov, then. So, um, if there was going to be some kind of big idea or big movement that would occur in your setting, where do you think it would come from?
Either it comes from across the waves, so from another country, I think, is more
Right.
likely. So like people arrive, maybe not even necessarily invaders, but like traders or something, and they have a religion or something. Um,
Hmm.
it would be most likely like a Christian. Uh, what do you call that? Uh,
Um.
like not Christianity, but like something that like has similar ideas and like represents it in the setting.
Sure.
Um,
Sure.
so it would be like the candle god or something, like something about light and peace and whatever. So very different to the people of Iskloft. But then that like the way that Christianity gained such popularity in our world is because like slaves didn't really have any power in the world, but then when they died, they get to go to heaven, and that's like so you could have that sort of thing happen in Iskloft where like all the thralls and all the poor people are like, oh well, this is nicer. Like I don't have to die in battle and go to Valhalla and then fight forever. I could just like
I
be nice to people and then go to heaven, which sounds really
just be
nice,
nice.
you know? Um,
Yeah, and it conveniently keeps the peace as well.
yeah.
Funny that, isn't it? It's almost like it's a system of control. It is interesting, and I like that. And I have always wondered if what it would be like if Iscloth like carried on and like it reached the net, because obviously we always talk about Iscloth and we know it's a Viking setting. Like, how long does your setting last before your setting
Yeah.
then changes because of time or a political movement? Like, will the genre of your game transform if you're willing to introduce different
Yeah.
ideas like that?
Because I think like I think I may have mentioned this in the post too, is that like fantasy worlds tend to be eternal. Like they like Middle Earth has
Yeah,
been Middle
yeah,
Earth for 6,000 years or something, and like they haven't
sure.
like invented anything in that time. Like they've had crossbows from day one, and now they still have them.
Yeah.
And like nothing changes technologically wise, or like philosophy wise, or like anything. Nothing changes. And like the same goes for like Faerun. I guess occasionally they'll have like some event like a spell plague or whatever. Um,
Mm.
but like really nothing changes. It's still Faerun.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not like they're having an industrial revolution or like a reformation of the faiths or anything like that. Like that stuff doesn't happen a lot in fantasy settings. Um, but like if you look at our world, like most of the interesting stuff that we look at is during those times of change, like when a big idea comes in and
Mm.
like changes things dramatically. So it just got
I
me thinking
suppose.
about like,
Sorry, go ahead.
there you go.
I was going to say, because I think that's really interesting, actually, because that very question of like what happens when something new is introduced. I've recently, and we're going to talk about this as we usually talk about it anyway, but I've recently just watched the extended edition of Lord of the Rings again, back to back with all the extras, all the appendices, just everything from top to bottom. But the story of Lord of the Rings comes around, and there is the introduction of industry and stuff, and that is kind
Mhm.
of touted as the end of the world. So Lord of the Rings apocalypse is essentially when the world moves on from that
Right.
age. um which is kind of interesting. And I've not really looked at it like that before. But
Yeah, I just think it's like we're thinking about, and like other settings, you could do it with Faerun, where like an idea comes through, like in the drought, like some prophet comes along in the drought, and like maybe it's harder in Faerun because the gods are literally real. So it's
yeah, that's true.
it's harder for things to happen. Like you can't really have a religious reformation in Faerun because the god can just be like, I don't want that, you know.
Yeah, but, excuse
Um,
me.
yeah, but if it's a more sort of vague fantasy like Isklov, where the gods maybe are real, but who knows really? Like everyone assumes they are, but
Mm,
like it's not literally true, maybe. Um, then you can have it, like some guy comes along and he's like, we shouldn't be killing people. And everyone's like, oh, but, Odin says you got to kill people to go to Valhalla. And they're like, oh, what about not Valhalla, though? What if there's somewhere else you can go?
yeah,
Because, like, in real history, the Vikings just thought that the Christian God was like another God. So, like, Odin and all were real, but also there was this Christian God who, like, works really hard and, like, yeah, all his followers are like really into him and he's like really jealous of all the other gods and stuff. So, like, they can exist in people's minds at the same time, kind of,
for sure.
Um, yeah, I think it's like interesting to think about and how you can like change your setting, particularly if you've been running the same setting for a long time and you're starting to think like, oh, I could shake it up a bit. Then like introduce like I don't know
Yeah.
a religious change or like an industrial revolution or a communism or something.
I think it will make it. Yeah, it keeps. If anything, it just keeps it fresh as well. There's only so much that you want to like. I don't know. It depends. It does depend. I think it really does depend.
We're
But
doing it.
yeah,
We're saying it depends.
I actually said it. Oh my goodness me, in an unironic way. What else do you want to talk about, Lloyd?
That was kind of it, I think. Did I tell you I wanted to talk about something else?
No, I don't think so. I want to
Okay.
talk about monsters for a bit. Going from mentioning, obviously, I watched Lord of the Rings again recently. I always notice something different every time I watch them. It's the same with a few film series. If every time I watch Star Wars, I notice something different. Every time I watch Lord of the Rings, it's the same. Yeah, there's always something different that I pick up on. And this time, it was really about the. It really hammered home to me thinking about it, watching it this time, why it's so great that Peter Jackson was primarily a horror director before he did Lord of the Rings.
Hmm.
And there was a discussion about monsters the other day, and I was thinking to myself, I've been me, and to be honest, I'm probably going to be making a video on this that I'm going to stick on my channel at some point because I've had a few ideas I want to get through on just edited. But I just watching them go into the mines of Moria as like a as an example. If you imagine that as a sample adventure that you're going to run in a role playing game,
Hmm.
and you are teased about the Watcher in the water, like there are like the film gives telltale signs that something's wrong, but there's dramatic irony because the characters aren't aware that the Watcher in the water is there. Okay,
Right.
then you suddenly slowly start seeing ripples and stuff like that. And I was just thinking about that idea of teasing a monster before introducing it into a full-on encounter. Is something that I want to do more of. If you think of Jaws, Jaws is really scary, but you don't see Jaws for ages. Like he's teased
Right.
and teased and teased and teased.
Alien, Predator, they all do the same
Yeah,
thing.
absolutely. And and then the Balrog, like there's a whole
Yeah.
scene where Gandalf looks at the book and says, you know what they work in the dark. What we were literally talking about earlier.
Yeah.
Um, and then it shows you the picture of him, and then there's the build up of it, and then you can hear the drum. There's literally like a drum roll for the
Yeah.
Balrog to appear. It's built up so much, and then all of a sudden it just erupts out of the darkness, and it's incredible.
It's that great bit where they're like standing and he's like, what does he say? Like, this foe is beyond any of you, run! And it's just like you can see the fire in the corner, but not the
Yeah,
Balrog, just the light. So good.
oh, yeah, it just built up so much. And I was thinking there must be ways of, I think I've done it sometimes, but like, when you can tease and build up a particular character, it doesn't necessarily have to be a monster, I suppose, but just the anticipation of that, that you're going to be facing something, but you don't know what or where it's coming from. And I thought it works pretty good for D&D if you're playing standard D&D, because there are some monsters that your players will know, so they will be looking
Yeah,
out for telltale signs. Like, I don't know, like say if they've like gone into a cave and there's like acid everywhere, maybe they'll like deduce that it might be a black dragon, or I
right.
don't know. Um, Leaving clues to sort of build anticipation, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Nico ran a Witch Hunter game, Witcher game, a few years ago, where we played three different versions of the Blood Hunter, and like it was
Mm.
kind of monster of the week in that like we were hunting a monster, and like we spent whatever 3/4 of the adventure figuring out where the monster was, what it was, and then we had like 15 minutes of like brutal combat with the monster, and it was really really satisfying because there was lots of like clues and like preparations and stuff. Like we were trying to figure out what it was, and we were like, oh, it's one of these. We better like prepare and like brew potions and like set traps and things so that we can like have a chance against it. And it worked really
Mm.
well, I think. And I think there's lots you can do with like layers and things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, in a like you say, a normal D&D game where there's lots of monsters, because some like most of the games I run aren't monster heavy.
Sure.
I did a little bit of it in Jade Horde, which I loved because I could actually use
Yes.
monsters, you know,
Yes.
and like I try and like up them a bit and make them a bit scarier because like an hell bear is a scary thing, you know.
Oh,
um, but like, yeah, so I think that's a cool idea, and it's worth thinking about. When I use monsters in Iscloft, and I don't use them very often, I do. I did the with the tomb. Do you remember that? You guys went into the tomb and tried
yes.
to avoid it,
Yeah. In fact, yeah, that was great.
and that was one of those kind of moments with like it was built up and it was clear that something was not right, and with all
Mhm.
these bodies and like. But still, you guys went for it and whatever else, you know. So that was like one of those sort of watcher the water moments, I guess. But you could do it with lots of monsters, I think, lots of different kinds of monsters
Yes.
and clues, and you
I,
could do it
I,
with Greek monsters like the Minotaur and stuff. Could be interesting.
yeah, actually, yeah, and that I suppose, like, if you were going for the full-on setting of a Greek kind of base game, you could do the labyrinth. Oh, that would be terrible.
Yes.
In fact, I actually ran a game where it was two of my mates. We just did a one shot, and they said, oh, we want it to be like like we want to be level 1. And I thought, oh god, that's just going to be dull. Like I'm going to be dropping them in against like just standard D&D as ages ago, like so like kobolds or something like that. And
Mhm.
I thought, oh, wouldn't it be a cool idea if they accidentally find their way into a labyrinth, where level 1 adventurers stumble accidentally into a level 10 adventure, and their job is to basically get through this labyrinth without being caught by the Minotaur. So it was more about them having to be clever and using what equipment they had and stuff and their resources to try and survive the Minotaur rather than fight it. Um, but
Mm.
it's good to. I mean, I'm just trying to think of other things that you could use to tease monsters. I love the example you gave with Nikos, because I mean, that's one of the things I love about the Witcher games anyway. I love the fact that you can find out about them, you get the right oils to put on your blade and stuff, and what signs you're going to use against the monsters. So that always builds anticipation for facing down something.
I think it's satisfying, like to because it makes the monster seem scarier too, rather than like you kick open a door and the monster's standing in there waiting for you. Like,
Just standing at the center of the room.
yeah, it's like interesting. I think more interesting to like uh, build it up and like give hints and oh, there's like uh, domestic animals are like going missing. All these sheep are going missing, and then you like start to follow
Oh yeah,
into the hills, and there's like bones, and you find whatever else, and it's like it's a troll or something, you know. It's like not a huge deal, or an ogre even, you know. But like when you build it up for even 20 minutes in the game, it's a much.
for sure, absolutely. One last thing on monsters before I think we jump to uh, games and stuff. Like you posted something cool about monsters the other day. I think you should mention it.
Yeah, about being sympathetic towards monsters. There's actually a great
Mm.
subreddit called Sympathetic Monsters. That's where I found the art.
Oh, cool.
Um, and just the idea that like sometimes like the adventurers, or like in most cases in normal D&D, the adventurers are like a crew of like devastating, experienced
Yeah.
veteran monster hunters who like kill monsters for a living and like loot their corpses and like take parts of their bodies to like make weapons with. And like if you're an intelligent monster, like how terrifying that is. Or if you're goblins or something, and like you're trying to, I don't know, live in your goblin warren, and then like the alarm bells go off, and they're like, "Oh God, it's adventurers!" Like you're just dead. You know, you're just like everyone. It's genocide is going to happen here.
Yeah,
Um,
genuinely, they're just gonna kill you and take your stuff.
so I think it's like sometimes worth considering. Like not always. Like some monsters are just like insane. Like beholders, you're not going to have a sympathetic beholder or a mind flayer or
No,
something.
no,
You know, but like some of
no.
them, I think like trying to think, but like I think goblinoids are a good example. Like okay, they're
Yep.
like evil in D&D, but like they're also little shitty creatures. Most of them, you know.
Mm.
Um,
I imagine like a sad, like minotaur that used to be like an honorable warrior,
yeah. Yep.
and
For
now he's
sure.
like gone off to die in a mountain, and then some people just come along and try and kill him.
Or like some monster like Medusa that's like cursed with being a monster, and she's like, I don't
Yeah.
want to be here. I every time when I look at turns to stone. I don't want to do that. Go away, please. Um,
Never faced one in fifth edition, but I've always liked the Revenant, which
mhm.
is someone who has passed on when they've got like unfinished business. They're
Yeah.
basically that like the Liam Neeson of the
Yeah.
undead world.
Yeah.
Like you took my family, now we're gonna butcher you all, that kind of thing. But
I
I've
always really
always
liked the
found them
idea
interesting.
of like a good lich to be really interesting. I think they had a name for it in older editions of D&D, like an elf lich.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
so like somebody who like becomes a lich and like uses their immortality to like help the community and like guide them, you know, with
Help
their
the
wisdom.
community.
You know, like
Yeah.
I've been alive for 6,000 years. I've seen all this happen before. I'm a very powerful spellcaster. I can make sure that nobody kills all these innocent elves who live here. But then the adventurers come in, and one of them's a paladin. And he's like, "That's an undead. I gotta kill it." And it's like, okay, but is he a bad guy? You know?
Yeah. And it'd be like think of the immense force of good that I create with all of my power, and compare that to the slight sacrifice of my soul. You
Yeah.
know, it balances out.
Yep.
It
Uh,
depends, Lloyd.
it depends.
So, with that, let's talk about some bloody games. I'll go first. I've not played any games, but upon this very channel, you can join me, Lloyd, and the rest of the Vampire the Masquerade crew on Sunday. We're returning to London and to the night. But until then, don't have any games to talk about. So, Lloyd, tell us about some of your games, please.
I played in a Call of Cthulhu game the other night.
Was that Nico's?
Yes,
Oh man, I wanted that
called
game bad.
Fear. It was very, very good. We were like, it was the early 2000s. We were like super wealthy people. We went on this like pleasure cruise on this yacht through the like sort of Arctic. We were like near Greenland. Um, and we were just like useless idiots, you know, like
Yeah.
not adventurers, like which I like. Which I said to Nico after the game is that like I like in Call of Cthulhu that you're just a person, you're not an adventurer, because
Yeah,
really
yeah, yeah.
it informed the way that I played the game. Like if I had been an adventurer, if we all had been, we probably would have like teamed up on that monster and killed it. But
Hmm.
because of the fact that we're all just normal people, we all just like ran away and hid and like,
It's
you know. So we like were sailing and we found this. The captain found this like ship that had crashed or like looks like it was stuck in an iceberg, and we like went to investigate. And as we were like trying to get across it, there was like this strange thing in the water that like only I saw because I fell into the water.
oh
Um,
no.
Trying to climb the rope because I'm so fucking useless that I couldn't fucking climb
Couldn't
across the
climb the
rope.
rope.
Fell into the water, like almost drowned. One of the other characters, like Mike's character, jumped in to save me. But I saw this like flash of white in the water, and then
Oh.
like was pulled out, and we went into the other ship, and it was like butchered. Like all of the crew were dead. The whole place was like ruined, and they had all been killed. And we were just like, "Fuck this! No, 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 no!" We were like standing on the. Then we ran upstairs and like stood on the deck of the other ship and looked across to our ship where like the chef and the first mate were, and they were like torn apart by this monster that I could see because I had silver on me. I had like a piercing,
Yeah.
so I could see it. But if you didn't have silver touching your body, you couldn't see the monster.
Oh my god.
And I was like, "What the fuck is happening? Oh my god!" It was amazing. We were just losing
That
it.
sounds incredible.
And then we like tried to like we went across to the ship and like tried to like get the pilot to steer the ship away and like pull away, and it was crazy. It was great. It was really really miserable, and it really felt Cthulhu-y. It was
What
good.
was the before we move? Because I'm just curious. That's the is that the seventh edition Cthulhu that
Yes.
you're using? What
Hmm.
is it like? Because I've never played it.
It's roll under system. There's tons of skills, so you have like there might be like 30 or 40 skills.
Yeah,
So then you can like whatever you have it like derives from your attribute, which is like strength. Uh, but it's not the D&D ones. It's like slightly different.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and then you like roll a percentile and try and roll under what your stat is. And if you have a skill, you try and roll under
Okay,
that. It's really simple. Like mechanically, it was really easy.
that's awesome. Like, because I do need to look into that because I keep hearing about these rad Call of Cthulhu games, and yeah, I need to learn me some of that. Was there anything else, Lloyd?
And then I ran Mir yesterday. Um,
Tell me what's going on in it because I haven't seen it. So
so Skjalmod, who's Nico's character, served the king, and he was like gifted this land. And when he got there, it was like in the middle of a disgusting fen swamp. Um, and maybe like 5 sessions went by as they tried to like turn that shithole into a livable place. And they dealt with the fen folk, who are like the strange like locals who like lived in
yeah.
the swamp. So they went and committed some genocide and like destroyed their town, burnt it to the ground. Um, and so the fans are like under control, and then they went up to speak with one of the other Jarls, and there was like a friendship formed there, and he had asked them to go and find his ancestor's sword. So they went to go do that, and like discovered that the sword was like cursed. It was Frost, which is like this blade in Isgloff that like is the kin killer, and like when you pick it up, you can't sheath it until you kill, and it like will inevitably lead you to like kill uh,
You
those who are
can't
close to you.
sheath it. Can you put
Yeah.
it down?
No, so like if you hold it and take it out, you have to kill before you put the blade away, and you have to like make a bunch of saves to try and put the blade away and stuff like that.
Oh my god,
Um,
that's so cool.
so like they found it, but like scrolled on the wall in like the in ancient blood was like this like little poem that the guy had written. He was like, we came here to like try and find the sword, but all we found was like misery and kinslaying. And so they left the sword there, despite the fact that it's very powerful. Like it's a very powerful blade, but it's also very dangerous. So they left it there, went back. They talked to some bandits, some outlaws, and Skjalmod has been recruiting outlaws into his uh, faction, which is unusual because mostly, and you know, having played Wagner, like nobody likes an outlaw. Uh,
No, yeah, it's sad. It makes me really sad, but
and
also
so,
really
like,
sad.
they struggled. They've always had to live out in the middle of nowhere, and like they live in this sort of like gang or whatever. And then Skelmon's like, you can come live in my town if you like obey my laws. And they were like, is he for real? Um, and then they met Rannick Wolftooth, who's like a an ally of Uthel's, who has like sailed south and
Oh no.
conquered a little chunk of where they are. And they had like a grim meeting with him, and then they went and got their ally and had a battle. Like they brought the ally and themselves, and then they like trapped Rannick's troops and they slaughtered them. But it was a really brutal fight. There was very almost a total party death situation. They were
Really?
all quite close to death. Skjelmod lost an arm at the shoulder.
Was it
Um,
just because the battle went badly? That's and it, or was it that they were outsmarted by someone?
no, it just like the dice rolls was what did it. Like they had
Yeah.
a good plan and stuff, and it wasn't like impossible, but just like I rolled incredibly well for the first little chunk of the battle, and then the dice abandoned me. But in that first chunk, I managed to like sever Nico's character's arm at the shoulder, like almost killed Taylor's character, and yeah, so it was pretty intense. It was a victory though in the end, which is uh,
Hard one.
yeah, the kind of victory you get in this draft, which is like
Yeah, which is
didn't
a really
even
sad,
win. Yeah,
annoyed, depressed.
yeah.
We're about to die kind of victory. Sure. Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, people who haven't been watching, which includes me, go and watch it over on the bloody Yard DM. Let's should we look at some questions, Lloyd?
I think we better add.
So, as always on the Dyers Cars, good couple hours before, we always post into the Absolute Tabletop official group upon Facebook. And there we ask for your deepest, darkest questions regarding role playing games. And today, our first question is from Rob Barkley, who says, a villain. You don't really get Dark Lords in real life, so what's a better way to bring villains and bad guys into a setting? P.S. Not talking about just evil people, but the Voldemorts or Saurons, world-shaping antagonists. What do you
That
reckon?
is your wheelhouse, my friend. That is something I don't often do is like use actual villains.
Sweeping.
Yeah, very few capes in my games. I haven't. I actually can't think of a single like sort of Dark Lord villain. Like the, I mean, Uthal's a villain, but he's also just like a guy, you know?
He is, but I will state, Lloyd, that you have been practicing as the mentioned villain Sauron for a significant amount of time. So you have experience with at least that
Yes.
Dark Lord.
Mhm.
Um, what is exactly the question? Like, how do you bring them into games? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think how do you like represent them and bring them
How
into a
bring
setting?
villains into a setting? Well, I mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Sometimes I think about what would be really cool. Like, it's true. Like,
Yeah.
there's a certain element you want to make them memorable. Um,
Yes.
I think
And it's also
that's
one of those things where like when you watch a TV show or a movie, you find that it's the villain that like really sticks out, you know? And
right.
if the villain is poor, like in Age of Ultron, you're like, that was a bad film, you know?
Agreed.
Because of the
Agreed.
bad villain, you know? And then you have Thanos and you're like, that's a good film because Thanos is a cool bad
Oh,
guy, you know?
Thanos is a legend. um, yeah, yeah. So first of all, I think about what I would find cool. I also think about they generally have to have a fairly decent purpose. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, like villains with their motivation and the like. We talk about it a lot. It's basically what I'm trying to say. Um, I think someone that is to bring them into your world, you should have them want something that is perhaps a juxtaposition to what your players want, um, and have them work intelligently. There's a quite a popular method that's going around lately to do with villains, and that is if you want to have like a really effective villain, but you're not always sure how they would act or what you should do to act to affect your game, just completely wash your hands of it and tell a friend of yours who isn't in the game, I want you to make all the decisions regarding this villain. I'm going to update you every now and then with what they're up to or what the villain would know, and I would like you to tell me how you would act because then the person who is then acting against them is entirely removed from your players and their experience and the game you're running for them. Because regardless of what they're doing over here, the villain should always be doing something over here that's to do with what they want to
Right.
achieve.
The master plan or whatever, yeah.
Exactly. The way I do it, like the way I work out what my villains are up to, is just I have just bullet points and I just have a set number of bullet points for a campaign. Um, and I just allow my villain to try as their best to execute each of those bullet points as the game continues.
Right.
To the point where it's unavoidable, to the point where the players will have, no choice to either face the villain and and stop them, or their plan will succeed. Um, so
Hmm.
make them cool, make them have like a goal, and
I think like some of the hallmarks of like a Dark Lord type villain, like a really powerful villain, is like foot soldiers, like and
yeah,
lots of resources, you know, like Darth Vader and Sauron and Voldemort even have like lots of resources at their command. Like
they
they can
do
just like
have a lot of
send
resources.
foot soldiers at you and like they don't have to like deal with you directly and they probably don't
Mm.
want to or like very rarely will deal with you directly.
They have
Um
a very and the thing is their identity is embodied by everything that works of them. So if you look at Sauron, you know, there's the symbol of the eye of
Mhm.
Sauron, and then all the orcs basically wear like Mordor armor. They all have like a look to them that you can
Yeah,
immediately identify them as being like, oh, they're Sauron's forces, or stormtroopers. You know, oh my god, they're the iron, the fist of the Empire. Like they're
yeah,
all uniformed. That's like what I did with like. That's why I just picked silver for Advent, and I
yep,
was like, anytime you see something silver, you now know that that's going to be. I mean, it sounds simple, but at the same time, you won't ever question when I say, "Oh, there's like a number of silver." Um,
yeah. It's a good
yeah,
shorthand.
yeah, exactly. Like you
Mhm.
instantly know. It's like knowing, oh, the bad guys have a red flag,
Yeah,
and I
yep,
think overlords have a strong identity, and so give them that, give them a banner, give them something that they can be identified through, even if they're not in the scene that you're doing in the game.
yeah. I mean, even Saruman has a white
The
hand.
white
You know,
hand, yeah, yeah, man.
Death Eaters have the tattoo. Like, yeah, it's all part of it, I guess. It's like a whole organization. Like a Dark Lord is at the top of this like pyramid of people who follow.
Sure. And in terms of storytelling with like role playing games, we're at the disadvantage that we don't get to have like light motifs unless you want to actually like record your own music for your game,
Yeah,
which would be crazy. But like, film has the advantage of like dun 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 dun
yeah,
dun dun, dun. You know who it is. So you've got to have motifs in the things that you use in the game. So in your descriptions, oh, you describe that red flag again or
yeah.
whatever. It's just like really quick messages, essentially.
Da-da-da, dun, dun, dun.
Boom, 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 boom. Oh, so good. Oh, chills. Good question. What's the
Okay,
next one, Lloyd?
let's go over to Kaya's corner.
Kaya's Corner.
That's the jingle.
That's the jingle.
Got it. I'll repeat an earlier OSG question. How important is it to be mechanically an individual in a party? Are pre-gens lazy gaming? Is it easy enough to roll a dangerous character? Sorry, it is easy enough to roll a dangerous character. What tips do you have to roleplay this archetype? So you're impressed not just by the numbers they roll, but from what they say. Dennis's characters are great for this. They don't say much, but what they say invariably leaves an impression. That's very true. It's a classic Dennis move.
Absolutely.
Um, how important is it to be mechanically individual in a party?
As you and I both agree on this. We've talked about that kind of before, and that is when we're playing a character in a game, we want to be really good at what we do.
Mhm.
You look to most of your characters, Lloyd, and they're usually pragmatic, tactical, uh, cool-headed. So yeah, like that. I think there's you want to be able to back up the kind of character that you want to play, and the kinds of characters only act that way because they're good at what they do. And so
Yes.
the numbers need to represent that, and then your performance in the game has to represent that. Now, that isn't the be all and end all of enjoying a game. You won't not enjoy the game if you do. You'll enjoy the game if you do badly, but to achieve what you want from a character, I think it is important to be not only proficient mechanically, but also kind of individual, because then you've got your role within the group as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we play in that Roman game, um, and although we're all Roman legionaries, we're all distinct mechanically.
Really,
So
really mixed bag.
yeah, so like you're a straight up fighter, a
Champion.
champion fighter. I am 2 levels of rogue, 2 levels of martial, 2 levels of fighter, and yeah, maybe it's 3 levels of each, maybe. So he's a triple multi-class, my character, and then Caius is like a fighter ranger.
Yeah,
Um,
danger, yeah.
Dan's character is like a fighter barbarian. We all had to take fighter when we started
It has to be
because
fighter
we
for
were
the
legionary.
Roman rules, yeah.
So ostensibly, we're all the same thing. We're all a Roman soldier. It's actually kind of the opposite to what Kaius is talking about, where we all have the same role, but we all achieve it differently through mechanics.
Yeah.
But I think you could also easily play a game where everyone is a uh, rogue, right? Everyone's a thief. Everyone's a
Yeah.
fourth level rogue thief. And you could be very distinct in what you do there. Or, I mean, especially with a fighter, because a fighter can do like various weapon options, so you can be an archer or a two-handed weapon guy or a sword and whatever. I think it's very possible to all be like identical mechanically, but still have diverse characters within that.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Like I had like a little worry, not like it wasn't like a massive worry, but when Tim was originally in the Law Keepers and he played Raylan, who was a fighter, and then I knew that Barker was going to come in and he was also going to be a fighter, and I was like, oh, is that going to be like treading his toes because we're just replacing him with another fighter? But one, I mean, mechanically not exactly the same, but
Mhm.
similar enough, only with strength instead of dex. But the character was so different that it didn't matter. And
Yep.
in a lot of low magic settings, there are going to be quite a lot of fighters anyway, like
Yes.
because that's the kinds of people that operate that function in that world. To go off on adventures in Iskloft, generally speaking, you ought to be pretty good at fighting because otherwise you're not going to do
Yeah.
very well. So,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't think it's entirely. I think when it is more like D&D and stuff, then you kind of feel it a bit more. But I think most groups generally have like that kind of ingrained within them. Like, I mean, still, if I were to sit down around a table and like someone says, "Oh, do you want to play in D&D?" And like, I'd be like, "Okay, what have we got in the group?" Like, "Oh, we'll
Yeah.
ask that question."
Yeah. Me too.
I will. Because it's nice to be able to cover some people with your skills or your abilities, perhaps, but also you have your own thing that enables you to do something cool and roll dice for something that no one else rolls dice for around that table.
Yeah, I agree. I like doing it too. I mean, it's one of like the things I really like about D&D and why I play D&D so much is that there's like a lot of character customization that you can do and a lot of character optimization that you can do, and I really like that part of the game. Like I like I say, if I play a character, I want them to be good at what they do, and I do that by making sure that my mechanics reflect the attitude of the character. And I think, I mean, my experience is that most people that I play with do something like that. Like almost everybody I know will like work hard to make an effective character. You know,
Yeah.
almost.
This actually reminds me of it's something I'm a little bit embarrassed about because it went like too far. And then when you try and say something, oh, I wasn't like really serious about that. But you saying, oh, I wasn't serious about that, then makes other people think that you were serious about it.
Yeah.
There was a we played a few sessions of Fantasy Flight Star Wars. And Lloyd was running a Jedi Civil War game or a build up to the Jedi Civil War game. No, yeah, it was build up
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
Civil War. And I was like, I was having like a discussion with Jeff about his character, and he was talking about like how good with a lightsaber he was. And I'd personally set out to make it so mechanically I would be unstoppable with a lightsaber. Yet somehow Jeff was more powerful with the Force and equally good as me with a lightsaber. And it really fucking got to me, man. And I was like, oh man, like I really want to be better with the lightsaber. If he's really good at the Force, I want to use the lightsaber really well. But not like really badly. But then when I said,
Yeah.
"Oh, don't worry about it," then it seemed like I was like,
Yeah.
and it was so embarrassing.
It's like one of those like it's fine. It's fine. All right.
It's
It's
fine.
fine.
Passive aggressive
Like when you
exclamation.
send a text and it's just K, you know?
Okay, fine. Ooh.
Fine. Full stop.
Juicy. So hopefully that. Oh, well, that was only one part of it, wasn't it? Oh god.
That was most of it. Yeah. It was just basically the question is like, how do you make a dangerous character but make them interesting? And I think that's just like a question of how do you make any character interesting? Because like just because you're mechanically effective doesn't like preclude you from being interesting. That's always what I say, and is that like
It depends.
no, but like that like you can optimize your character and still be a role player. And that's like how I've always played D&D. Like I want to have the most effective character I can have mechanically, but also want to role play.
Absolutely. So that was the end of Kai's corner. Thank you, Kais. Um, so let's see. We've already talked about marks, so
We
I
have
that
yeah.
should yeah, it's not yeah. But Taylor says, is it necessary or important for GMs to know the mechanics on the players' character sheets? Why or why not?
It depends. This one actually does depend, I think, because I think when I'm running for new people, I need to know what's on the character sheet so I can tell them
Agreed.
what they can do, so I can
Yeah,
help them with those facts.
fair.
Um, I think that it's useful to know what they can do if you're playing a game that's carefully balanced. If you're trying to play D&D Adventurers League. I think it's good to know what your players are capable of because you want to try and balance the encounters. There are people who play that way. It's dumb, but people do it.
For real.
Um, Overall, I think in most of the games that I run, I don't need to know what's on my card. In fact, I often don't know. Yesterday, I ran an impromptu battle and I asked them after I had rolled initiative, what level are you guys? So, like it doesn't concern me over much like what my but then again, if I'm playing a new game that isn't fifth edition and isn't Iskloft,
Mm.
then I probably want to know more about what my players can do so that I can kind of like try and figure out what I'm supposed to be doing if it's a new system.
Sometimes it does. I quite enjoy being surprised by it. Like there have been times when I've run games, even like online and stuff, where I've said, "Oh yeah, go away and level up," and then you'll come along. Like I think the first time Locris with Azarax used Fireball, and I didn't know he'd taken it.
Yeah.
He like with his amazing spell descriptions anyway, he came out and said Fireball and like did the Fireball, and I was just like, that was amazing. Admittedly, that was from like Locris, so maybe it's like an unfair comparison to make. But so I like sometimes being surprised by like players pulling out new abilities that I didn't know they had. I was very curt about that question earlier. I was like, no, players should already know what's on their character sheet. Like, we've got enough to do. But you're absolutely right. When it comes to new games or new systems or new players,
Mhm.
it does help. It really does help. I mean, it helps that we've played a fair amount of games and we've got like a fair amount of gaming experience. So generally speaking, one, we'll have either heard of that ability and have a
Mhm.
rough idea about it, or we'll be playing with people that generally speaking will kind of know what they're doing. Hopefully,
Yes. I think in most online games I wouldn't worry about it, but and like sometimes people will ask like, should I send you my character sheet? And I'm like, if you want to, but I'm not gonna look at it. Like
yeah,
I have enough work to be doing.
exactly.
But yeah, I started a new home group on Sunday, and it was just two lads, and like it was their first time ever playing D&D,
Oh,
and
that's cool.
so I had to like they were a level one paladin and a level one wizard, and so I had to like know what their stuff was so that they would be like, I want to hit the boy, and I was like, okay, well, here's what you got to do. You gotta, here's your +5 to hit, and this is how much your damage is or whatever.
That was just like a fleeting insight into what happened in that game. I want to hit the boy.
They actually didn't hit any boys.
They didn't hear any voice. Oh man. Oh, that tickled me. Oh man. There was another one.
Okay, what methods do you use to work around scheduling when people can't make a campaign session? NPC
Oh,
the character off screen. What is this? Okay, it says. I was like, is this another language? Alvar and
Valimir.
Mir. It sounds like a spell. Alvar and Mir.
Yeah. Wrong person to ask. I'm really, really bad.
Uh,
Um,
what do I
I
do? You go.
Yeah, I mean, for me, methods I use to work around scheduling, like I have the one, which is I make a doodle and I basically keep pressing until it happens. But when people can't make a campaign session, when they can't make it, it depends. Like with law keepers being monthly, like generally speaking, I'm like, no, we don't play. I've had sort of this thing with, for some reason, with law keepers where I be like, if one of you isn't here, then it doesn't happen. Like it has to be all of us.
Mhm.
Um, which in a way is good because I mean, they're sure that all the characters that are in that situation are in that situation when we go back to them. They haven't just vanished. Um, but for things like vampire, it's not so much of a big deal if like one session is missed or whatever. It's not ideal, but
Yeah.
because like generally speaking, I'm playing this game with these people because I want to play with those people. So it's a shame, but real life gets in the way. Um, so yeah, I think it depends.
I would say that most of the time I would rather have them be off screen than try and NPC them. I don't generally try and NPC player characters.
Oh, agreed, agreed.
Uh, and I'm not super keen for other GMs to do that with my characters, but sometimes it's necessary. Like if I was to miss a session of Game of Thrones, for example, where like my character is very central,
Yeah,
like Nico would have to NPC him because you can't just like cut out that character from the game. And if you're running like a
yeah,
three-player game, then you kind of have to, particularly if you're in the middle of nowhere, like in if you're in a city, like okay, I have some urgent business, I'll be back. That's
yeah, yeah.
fine. just it's very hard to be like, oh, and he just stops and doesn't follow you, you know?
Yes. Oh man. No, I'm totally with you there. Um, yeah, sometimes it can't be helped. Like with yeah, like I said, with vampire things like that, like easier to drop in and out because it's
Mm.
sort of city based and sandboxy, and I can say, oh, I just need to go and I need to go
And
home.
modern too. So that next session, I can just ring them on my phone and be like, "Where are you guys?" And we can,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, if
That's
it's
it.
Faerun and you've gone 600 miles in one session, then it's like, how am I going to find you?
Oh, tell you what, transportation, like magical or otherwise, like is a great weapon indeed in a
Very
fantasy
true.
world. Being able to just go places quickly is such a big advantage. Um, what else we got? Taylor then also says, "What are your tips for keeping combat narrative uh, and feeling interesting and alive, both as a GM and a player?"
As a player, I give my mechanical information upfront immediately. I say, I have rolled this and here's my damage. And then I wait for the GM to say he's dead or he's not. And then I narrate what my thing is. That should be the standard. And uh, fucking, there's lots of you, hurry up. It's like my general sort of thing as a player. As a GM, it depends. Uh, Yesterday I ran a battle, and so I would put in lots of stuff about in between, like while they're fighting other people that all around them, things are happening. Like there's somebody fighting over there, and somebody has just died in front of you, and you can see an axe smash into the back of this guy's head as you like swing for this guy, and to try and make it feel chaotic and feel sort of like a press and like a battle.
Hmm.
Um, with monsters and like single enemies, if it's a duel, I probably would do a lot as well of like eye contact and feet shifting in the sand and whatever else, you know. Um, yeah, I guess it's that stuff. The ancillary details, like things that are happening that aren't directly related to the combat, to make it
Yeah,
feel real.
I think you were kind of sort of alluding to it in your point there, Lloyd. But I think you once you work out what kind of narrative you want to tell with the combat, I think that's where it's key.
Yeah,
So if you want like, every battle, every battle is a story, every fight is a story. So an Iskloft crazy frenzied battle in the shield wall has obviously got a particular style to it. Um, so you play up to that style. You play up to the fact that like people are being crushed underfoot as like shields are smashing into shields and spears are splintering around you, and like you can't see, and you've got mud in your face, and then all of a sudden you feel like a sharp pain where someone somewhere has stabbed you, but you don't know who. Like it's
yeah,
um, so there's that level of confusion. So you make the way you tell, explain it confusing. Like it's horrible. Whereas if it's like a high fantasy, like Wizard's Duel, you'll be talking about like, oh, how sort of like dust and rocks lift into the air as like
yeah,
your magical forces swirl around you. Like you sort of embody the kind of mood you want to have in that particular fight, and then sort of communicate it that way, I guess. Um, as a player, I generally try and tell. I like to try and there's a leaf I took out of your book actually, Lloyd, is to make sure that while you're uh, is to make sure that you don't ever slow down. So you make sure you make sure you know what attacks or actions you're going to be making before it's your turn.
yes,
That's just decency. And, so you can be confident that you can deliver the necessary information because remember this is still a game. But at the same time, like inform the rest of the players what's going on with your dude. Like, are
yeah,
they like desperately like fighting, or are they confidently leading from the front? Like, yeah. But the most important thing is to keep it snappy, to not take too much time, and just be useful with giving numbers quickly.
yeah. I think that's it. Don't fart around. We've all got places to be.
Fuck on, let's do it.
Okay. Oh, here's the sass. It's great. My question is, who are you, and why are you telling me I'm playing my games wrong?
Because you are James.
Yeah,
I
get it
mean,
right.
you wouldn't need to ask that question if you weren't doing it wrong already. You know.
There must be a kernel inside you that thinks you're doing it wrong if you're asking.
Poor guy.
Maybe someday his games will be good.
Maybe. Nicholas Dawson. We should invent a section for Nico as well at some point.
Mm,
In the meantime, the Lord himself asks, why does it seem like the golden age of interest posts and daily games is over? And how do we bring about the second golden age? I think that's called the summer.
I think that's
Um,
exactly it. Yeah.
yeah, it's just that like no one's been around, and it sucks. Like I've had like a shit ton to do this summer. You have as well. Like a lot of people have. Um, and I think because of that, like more people are outside rather than gaming. I guess I don't know. Like that's the way I look at it anyway. Like it seems that this our community kind of slows down over the summer. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too. I think people like, well, for me, definitely, I go out a lot more in the summer than I do in the winter.
Agreed.
I'll be out doing things and being a real human. And then winter will come and I will become a role play gremlin.
Yeah, role playing
Um,
gremlin, hermitage.
so I imagine that like somewhere around mid-October that there will be a resurgence of the golden age. That's my guess. When
Yeah,
the bad weather returns, when it's dark here for 11 hours a day.
yeah. And I mean, like, I'm really excited, like, because in a way, I'm kind of like, I think although sometimes I really miss like running like Vampire and Lawkeepers and stuff, at the same time, I think both of those games are going to benefit from me having a break. I'm really excited about getting back to both of them and jumping back into the games that I play in as well, like Against the Shadow, and I'm going to be hopefully joining S-Class back again, which I'm really excited for because I've missed that like hell.
Mm.
So I don't know. Like for me, it's yeah, my involvement with games is going to increase as the days grow dark. And it's good because I've got like lots to think about in terms of what kind of games I'm going to be running.
Yeah, I've got a lot of games bouncing around my head as well, and like ideas for games and stuff like that. So I think when this calms down and like so this part of the year, particularly like early September, is when all of the youth theaters start back up.
Yes.
Um, it's when all of like the arts funding happens. It's like the busiest possible time for like if you're in this line of work. Uh, so I've just come back from my holidays and I have a million things to do. But then I imagine that like the time October rolls around, I'll have a solid schedule that is like
Settled.
even,
Yeah,
you
you'll
know,
be
and then
settled.
I'll be like, okay, now I can commit to more games and whatnot.
Our lives mirror themselves in strange ways, Lloyd. I'm exactly the same boat. I have more auditions in September than I have in August, July, and June combined. So
Right.
I don't know what it is. Yeah, I guess it's to
Yeah.
do with the funding, I suppose, and the fact that people are going back to schools and stuff. And yeah,
Yeah.
interesting. But anyway, from that tangent, Nico has a few more questions for us. Why is it that the last minute is by far the most common time of cancellation?
Social anxiety.
Do you think?
Yep. I think people don't want to confront somebody and say, I can't go to the game until they literally have to. Um, I think that's often the case, I feel, when people cancel on my games short notice.
Right.
Um, Sometimes it's unavoidable. Sometimes things happen, you know,
Definitely, definitely.
and like the game is the last thing on your mind. And then you're like, oh shit, I better tell the person that I can't make it to the game. Um,
Yeah.
and it also tends to be the case that like if something does happen, it's on the day of the game because you haven't been expecting it or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that's true as well. And yeah, sometimes I guess it's because sometimes just shit happens as well.
Mhm.
Like you might break down or something. Not mentally, I meant like in your car, but also mentally. That also is a thing. Um, Jesus Christ. What else?
When you have an intelligent group focused on high or P, does it make social skill mechanics like persuasion, intimidation redundant? I think so.
Mm,
My experience is that yes, it does because it depends on the group, but I find the groups that I play in most often, uh, those are wasted skills because I find that like I will usually as a player just like actually intimidate or actually persuade a person like an NPC. And
Yep.
as a GM, I will have my NPCs do that also, and I'll find that players respond in kind. Um, so I tend to find that like people like in the games that I run and that I play, I very rarely ask for a persuasion check or an intimidate roll or things like that. Um,
Yeah, it's at the end of the day, we're really lucky to like be with people to game with people that we really agree on how games should be played. So when someone goes into like an impassioned like speech before there's going to be a battle or some amazing clever and tactical discussion in like an act of diplomacy that could decide the fate of two nations. Like if someone pulls that out and does it really effectively, what are you going to say? No, that can't happen because you don't have +4 written on your character sheet.
yeah,
Or are you going to let that happen because that's incredible and then just reward that? You don't obviously.
like the
You
counter argument is if somebody describes themselves beautifully slashing the head off an enemy and like it's marvelous and incredible, you wouldn't let them do that. You know, you would make them roll to attack anyway. I think, or I would. I think you know.
But at
Um,
the same time, I know exactly what you mean, and that is a very good point. I just think that so many people yearn for there to be like that kind of impassioned kind of feeling behind. I don't know actually, because some people don't like playing like that.
yeah, I mean, I'm
Some
not
people don't
super
enjoy that.
like we played a set like several sessions of Mir, and I'd say in like 4 sessions we rolled 5 dice.
Yeah.
You know, like it's basically just a free improv that we do, or it has been for. And then last session we rolled a bunch of dice because there was a combat.
Mm.
Um, so it depends on the groups because sometimes you know, like in my home game that I started on Sunday, they wanted to roll dice just all the time. They're new to it, and they were like, "I want to roll to see if I can do a cool handstand, and I want to roll to see, you know, like all these things." Um, that you kind of take for granted. And the more that you do, the more kind of agency you realize you have when you play.
Yeah.
You know, like you can say, I do a cool handstand. And the GM's probably going to be like, cool, all right. You know, like, but initially, I think you have to, like, you really kind of think about the game a lot. It's a tricky
Amazing.
one.
It is tricky. It
It's,
is tricky,
it's
but
hypocritical, is what it is, because if I was not like as good at talking as I am. When I play a game, I'm like very focused, and I feel like I'm pretty able to like uh, argue and banter with NPCs and stuff like that. You know, and I'm confident in doing it, and that's why I don't tend to ask, "Can I roll a persuasion check?" I'll just try and persuade.
mm,
But maybe you're not like that, but I am. You know, and you are, and Nico is, and Taylor is, and like all the people we play with on a regular basis are, and so it tends to be
yeah,
the case that like you don't need to roll those checks because it's
yeah.
literally happening.
And so I think to answer that in those games, absolutely it is redundant, but in others, not. Some people
Seems
need
like the
their
answer.
characters to be able to roll the charisma. Yeah,
It depends.
it depends. How do you approach a player who's completely missing the tone of a game and chuckle fucking it to death? Nicholas Dawson, ladies and gentlemen. Love it. Is one player's enjoyment more important than the tone of a game a GM is aiming for, in your opinion? Um, just want to jump in straight away and say if it's ruining it for everyone, then yeah. If everyone else is joining in, then whatever. I don't know. I think if it's disrupting something that you personally wish to achieve and that you've all agreed upon that you want to achieve, like we don't play as Cloft and then you know then start a chuckle fucking it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yep.
It's sort of just assumed, but it wouldn't be assumed for everyone. So
No, and it's awkward. Like that's the thing about this particular situation. It's awkward. Like often you're not going to be playing with people who you feel willing to be like, "Hey, give it a rest." You know, like who feels like that? You know.
it's the only social activity I can imagine turning around to someone, looking them dead in the eyes, and saying, "Excuse me, can you stop telling jokes, please?"
Can you have less fun, please?
Could you just chill out a bit? I want this to be a bit more serious, please.
But if you were running like a serious historical game and someone was making loads of pop culture references, I'd
Yeah.
fucking lose it. I would hate it. But I also don't know if I would confront them in the game. I think I would be too awkward to say to them, hey, can you not? Like I don't know if I would, and I'd like to, but I don't know if I would. Particularly if I'm playing with like people that I know. It's awkward to be like, stop having fun. You're ruining my idea of what the fun of this game is.
Yeah, as if someone like grabbed a sword and like assumed it was like Excalibur in this cloth or
Yeah.
something. Just something weird that you'd be like, okay, that's weird.
Right. Or you're like playing It's Gloves and then somebody like makes a bunch of dick jokes and you're like, can you not? Like don't do that. That's
Yeah,
not the right tone.
play with
I don't
people
know.
that you think are gonna.
Yeah, I
Don't
guess.
play with idiots.
Yeah. I don't know what the answer there is, to be honest. It's awkward and uncomfortable, and I probably would just tolerate it and then not invite them to the game again.
Probably. Yeah, just never speak of it.
Yep.
Never speak of it again. I mean, I'd say, generally speaking, if it's sort of made apparent, if you don't like react to it like either positive or negatively, you just don't react to it, then maybe they'll stop. But that's my British sensibility coming in, like just
Yeah.
ignore it and like repress it, and hopefully it'll go away.
Yeah, just like tut quite
I'll have
loudly.
to like look at twitch the curtains a little bit later on.
Yeah. Goodness, God's sake.
Questions we did answering and
Yeah.
answered they have been. Do we have any in the YouTubes?
We have one at least from Osmandius, that's Quo Vadis on the Facebooks. How do you
Cool.
guys imagine a real world, a world works with real gods? I'll try that again because I fucked it up badly. How do you guys imagine a world works with real gods?
Weirdly,
Yeah,
because it's the thing that you can't refute then whatever religious doctrine that surrounds them because they're there.
yeah. It's like
But
literally true, you know?
then you've got to think to yourselves, well, then are these what is a god? Is it a god just someone that happens to have special powers?
Yeah.
It's like the when magic becomes, when science seems like magic to those who are um, of a different culture or something.
Uh-huh. Have you seen the little cartoon going around at the moment where like there's a bacteria and it's like, how could something be more what is it? I can't remember. It's like a picture of bacteria and a picture of an animal and a picture of God and then a picture of Cthulhu with like God as a hand puppet. And it's just like there's always a bigger, more powerful thing, is kind of the idea. And it's like, are gods in Faerun, for example, are they not just like really powerful outsiders? Is like,
Yeah,
is what's the like Torm? Is he not just a really powerful angel? Or like what's the baddie called? Asmodeus. Is he not
that's
just a really
yeah,
powerful
that's
devil?
that's the thing. They are. That's what
Yeah,
you're absolutely right. You can go and you can meet them
yeah.
if you had enough power and like the ability to find them or know how to put yourself in front of them. You
And you
absolutely can.
can
You can kill them.
become a god, as well. Yeah, you can kill them and become them. And to me, that's not my understanding of what a god is at all.
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's a weird one.
So does a real real god, does that then mean that they can't be perceived? It has to be built upon faith.
Maybe there's like a great line in. Have you seen the film Dogma? The
Yeah, I
Kevin
love
Smith.
Dogma. I love Kevin Smith.
There's a line where the Metatron says that they went through 5 atoms before they figured out that no one can speak to God.
Yes, yes.
And it's just like I can imagine, yeah, like a human, and then God says something, and they just, and like okay, yep, because you just couldn't process. Like it's part of the Lovecraftian thing is where you see something that's so beyond your understanding that it just drives you insane. Like if you look upon Yog Sothoth or something, you'll just lose it.
Yes. Ugh.
So God surely should be the same kind of caliber where like if it's God, Christian God, then it's the
Mm.
thing that made all existence. And it's like, how can you look at that without losing your mind?
Without losing your mind. Good lord. Yeah, hope that helps. That's what we think it would be like.
Yep.
Robert, it really does depend. Coletta from Nico, absolutely. Is R2D2 a hobbit? No.
Nope.
And that's it.
Yeah. Cool. I think we did it.
We bloody did it, man. We absolutely bloody did it. That's
We bloody did it.
I'm just trying to bring up the hangout again because there we are. So thank you ever so much, faithful viewers, once again, for joining us at the Dyers Cast. As usual, when we next record, we will be posting into the Absolute Tabletop Facebook group with questions where you can pose those questions to us. Or why don't you just drop some questions in the comments under this video, or put your responses to the questions that were asked in this video in the comments as well. Because apparently you have to tell people to put comments beneath your videos for them to be regarded as anywhere near successful. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, that'd be great.
Make sure you smash that subscribe button.
Smash the subscribe button. Do not forget to hit the bell. Okay, you click the bell because otherwise you will not be notified of my video's presence.
Also hit the like button.
Also hit the like, also hit the subscribe. Lloyd, got anything coming up you want to plug?
What day is it? Wednesday.
What day is this? He looks at the stars.
I'm playing. Well, actually, I'm playing in a Game of Thrones game on Friday, but it's not going to be broadcast. So, tough titties. I'll be playing in your game on Sunday. I'll be running against the Shadow on Monday.
Yeah.
No, it won't. It'll be the Monday after.
I was going to say, like, is it next Monday?
I'll look at my calendar real quick and see if I have any games coming up. I don't know. I have Mir on Tuesday. I always have Mir on Tuesday.
Yep.
I don't know. We'll see.
Fantastic. I only have two things, and that is Vampire the Masquerade London returns to performance check on the 9th of September, around 9 o'clock GMT, if you want to catch it live, where we will return to Embrace the Night. And then on the 16th of September, finally, after the long absence, the Lawkeepers returns for what is likely going to be one of the very last sessions. So it's coming up to the end. So join us for that as well. In the meantime, how do we stop this again?
Usually what we do is we go bye, and then we just keep saying bye until people leave. You do a wink and you take off your glasses.
That's my sign off, but I don't know if I do that. I don't think I do that in Dyer's Cast, do I?
I'm not sure.
I don't think I do. Well, let's just do a mix. Bye.